or 19th of Muharram, depending on which type of calendar you're following. As usual, we do have a packed show today. Inshallah, we will talk about all the pertinent issues that have hit the headlines of the last week or so since we spoke last week. And we have a plethora of guests who will be giving their views and updates on the news as it appears from around the world, inshallah. As last week, we're going to start off with the happenings in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, Afghanistan has hit the headlines for the wrong reasons again one more time. And the headlines are full of carnage in Kabul as it stands at the moment. So brief history. I'll start off with the events of today, and I'll give you a brief history of where things have gotten to in Afghanistan. So as of yesterday evening, around about 6 o'clock, there was a series of explosions, some say 3 explosions that took place at the Kabul airport. If you remember, Kabul airport is still under the control of the Americans, and 95 people have been killed, including American soldiers, 150 injured, and there's been horrific scenes of bodies strewn all over the place, some in the sort of the waterways, etc., as well as the pictures will come through. The attacks have been blamed on ISIS-K or ISK, and in Biden's address several days ago, he warned that ISIS-K was planning these attacks, and it's been confirmed, according to some newspapers, that ISIS-K have actually accepted responsibility for this horrendous attack. Lots of horrific pictures and images on all sorts of newspapers and news websites, unfortunately. So we've got to talk about this incident and also the wider situation within Afghanistan. We've got a number of guests, inshallah, and our producers are in the process of lining them up at the moment. So I'll give you a bit of an rundown, I guess, in terms of what's happened in Afghanistan. Things have moved rapidly. When we spoke last week, there obviously was the focus of attention was around people trying to get out of Afghanistan. For the last good few weeks, the Taliban have been making a series of gains in lots of sort of districts and towns, etc. And Kabul was the last of them, which fell several weeks ago. It appears that the government troops have dissipated. However, no formal announcement has been made of a government as such, a structure as such, apart from the fact that Taliban are claiming that they are in charge of Afghanistan as it stands at the moment. And I do understand, and I guess our guests could perhaps confirm that as well, is that negotiations are still happening between the various stakeholders to form a government which is representative. And Taliban have issued reports to say that they intend to form an inclusive government. So that's the situation we're in at the moment. We'll start off with, I guess, the horrendous activities or the acts that have happened yesterday and today. If I can first of all ask Brother Nas to sort of comment on that and comment on who this ISK is and what's their problem really.
Firstly, Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for having me. And obviously, we all share the words that you just opened with, and truly the scenes are horrific and they are heart-wrenching. Especially that those who were killed were mainly people who were essentially trying to flee for their own safety and for their lives and for the lives of their children. So to meet this kind of barbaric attack at the gates of where they were hoping to reach to what they thought was safe adds to the tragedy of the whole thing. We basically don't know who ISK is. We've heard a few statements in the last few weeks issued by this called ISK, especially condemning Taliban as kuffar, because they claimed that they had signed a deal with the Americans, and this comes at the heels of an agreement ratified with the Americans, and for that they condemned them to being kuffar. It seems that there are elements, regardless of whether this ISK is real, whether it's a proxy for someone else, whether it's in the pockets of someone else, whether it's acting either out of conviction or out of at the behest of someone else, regardless. But the fact is that what most analysts who have been following events, not only in Afghanistan, but the entire region from the Middle East to Pakistan, Afghanistan, and so on over the past few years, realize that this quick victory on the ground by the Taliban that they achieved last week was definitely going to be followed by a time of turbulence. How that was going to pan out was, it was just down to a guessing game. But something like this, I think that many analysts contended that it was quite a stark possibility. And let's not forget, essentially the American occupiers of Afghanistan, having left in such haste, obviously left a vacuum behind. And one of the elements of that vacuum is a security vacuum. And in a way, it's not too difficult for anyone who wants to create havoc, who wants to spread chaos, who wants to go on a killing spree. It's not too difficult to do. And this is one of the legacies that are left behind by the Americans, that they left behind a country that they failed to bring together. They failed to bring any kind of development, any kind of growth, any kind of stability over 20 years of them being in total control. And then they left in haste, leaving behind many of those who were loyal to them, as well as their families, obviously, and essentially a country that is still ravaged by instability and by chaos. I pray, and I think that the vast majority of sane and rational people pray that Afghanistan does come to some sort of stability. It's a fantastic country and a great people, and they deserve far, far better.
Brother Anis, perhaps I ought to say, Brother Anas, you're in charge of is it the Cordoba Institute? I'm
the chief executive and founder of the Cordoba Foundation, which is based here in London.
Based in London. I'm going to talk about that in much more detail a little bit later. In terms of the structure, I wanted to comment on this incident first of all, and then look at perhaps the transition to a different form of government and the possibilities of that, and also look at the challenges ahead. And I guess you kind of hinted at some of the challenge, potentially the power vacuum and the ability for people like the ISK to actually sort of create havoc in the country. If I can bring in Ahmed Hussain, who's representative of Impact UK, I guess first of all your interest in this particular story as a way of introduction, and also your views on what would this particular group gain from killing innocent people. I guess at this stage, I guess previously there was I guess in the minds of the Afghans there was an invader. So therefore, you could not understand, but you can, in some ways, that they had a motive. What is the motive of these guys, ISK, and why would they want to sort of create havoc and kill innocent people?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. So I just want to echo what Brother Dr. Anas was saying, which is basically that we are still gaining information not only on the incident itself, but on those who claim, who claim, the madmen who would want to claim such an incident. And if you look at the name ISK, ISIS-K, you can only assume at this point that they're trying to draw an affiliation with the other well-known ISIS brand. And, you know, these are people whose method of working, whose modus operandi is simply a murderous operandi, you could say. They exist to destroy. And the people they seek to destroy are those who wield no power, whether they are civilians on the streets of Europe or they are the vast majority of their victims, just normal, ordinary civilian Muslims. These are people, they're victims in this incident and other incidents like it, are people who have no power, who are in fact oppressed by those with power, and killing these people makes no statement other than adding to the discord, the discord and the chaos of a turbulent time. So if that is what the outcome is, and they are proud to claim such an outcome, you can only assume that that is what their intention was. This is a group who has been unknown by the majority of observers and analysts in the past 2 decades of the NATO-led occupation of Afghanistan, and now here they are, you know, trying to cause mayhem at the doorway at the airport, where people are just trying to leave for safety as they see fit. So, you know, I don't want to
going back to the point.
Sorry.
I mean, I think what you're saying is that creating havoc and destruction is their aim. But why would somebody do that? Why would there must be an objective that any group wants to sort of pursue, I guess, and any acts they do in some ways point to that particular objective. And we saw over and over again, I guess, their affiliates in Syria, effectively destroying the country, right, in Syria, but doing the same in Afghanistan. What did they hope to achieve? In Syria, all the ulama, all the people who are from a religious background, all the people who are in authority, effectively condemned them as being, some condemned them as being heretics, but others have condemned them to be having no basis whatsoever of any support, right, from anywhere. So what are these groups, and what do they hope to achieve from carnage like this?
Well, we heard last year as the discussion, as the discourse around the occupation of Afghanistan finally turned towards, an abandonment or an evacuation or a retreat from Afghanistan, we heard some noises from NATO, from Britain, from US, that, although the forces would be retreating from Afghanistan, there would still be periphery forces around the borders, around the neighbors of Afghanistan that would be ready to attack, if and when they see fit. They would be keeping that capability. Now, so far, we have seen forces and mercenary forces also leaving Afghanistan. However, have they left that back door in terms of logistics as well as an excuse open to themselves? Time will tell. But we can draw parallels with a previous failure that the US faced in its imperialism, which is, of course, Vietnam. And after Vietnam, of course, we saw a failure, a military failure from the US, but that did not mean that, they dusted their hands off and left the Vietnamese to themselves. What we saw was, on a high level, on an international level, we saw, economic and political sanctions and, making things difficult for the new Vietnamese government. And, without a doubt, what we are going to see is the more covert operations and more covert attempts at spreading disunity in a country that has dared to defy US imperialism.
Okay, so, Brother Anas, I guess I think what Ahmed is pointing to is that perhaps these what is there to be gained from this IS, the label has been put into the public, and you kind of hinted at the fact that that label doesn't necessarily point to a particular group, or it may be, a group acting at the behest of, or it could be a mercenary group, it could be a freelance group, it could be, I don't know, patsies, whatever you want to call them, effectively. But it does point, I guess, to the fact that, anybody who has the interests of the Afghanis at heart, this attack, it doesn't serve their purpose at all.
No, and I totally agree what Brother Ahmed said. I mean, this group is based on an ideology of destruction. Full stop. They are incapable, or that particular ideology which they have tied themselves to, is a destructive ideology. It does not build, it does not construct, and therefore, Ahmed mentioned Syria, for instance. I was born in Iraq, and they also held forts in Iraq, and particularly in the city of Mosul, which ultimately, because of essentially because of their presence and their actions, and subsequently because of the government of Iraq, which is tied to both the Americans and British from one side and to the Iranians from another, they absolutely destructed the second city in Iraq, and over 1 million people were displaced in a matter of few days. Their ideology is essentially destructive. They do not build anything. They are incapable of building or constructing anything. And therefore, if this group, ISK, if it turns out that they base their actions on the ideology of ISIS as we came to know it in Syria and in Iraq, then unfortunately we're going to see even more senseless, irrational attacks such as this, and acts of destruction and carnage, such as the one that we've seen in the past 24 hours. We're not going to make heads or tails out of, well, what might their strategy be, because that doesn't go against, that doesn't go with the kind of strategy that they espouse, the ideology that they espouse. But coming back, and I think that it's crucial that whilst we do talk about what's happening, and particularly these events, but it's incredibly important to highlight what has actually taken place in Afghanistan in the past week to 10 days, because what's happened is a lesson to every single free nation around the world, and that is that any occupation, be it by the superpower, the military superpower, technical superpower of the world, it will not last. And it might be 20 years, but 20 years we saw the beginning, and then we saw the very end of that saga of occupation. And ultimately, if people stand their ground and fight for their rights and do not compromise in terms of trying to get 60% of what they really want or 70% of what they really want, ultimately victory will be theirs. And what's happened in the scenes of the Americans and the occupation and the loyalists to the occupation fleeing en masse whilst the Taliban were gaining ground is something that I think, at least from my perspective, all the workshops and lessons and modules that we give in political sciences are all going to be rewritten in light of what happened. This is something that I think we should continue to celebrate, regardless of whether the Taliban will be successful in government, because fighting is one thing. Governing a country which has been ravaged by war and conflicts and infighting and the such and occupation for more than 4 decades, that's a totally different thing. But regardless, the actual fact of liberating Afghanistan from an occupation, from the clutches of the superpower, that is the Americans, is something that gives hope to everyone, including my own country, which is more or less still under an occupation of sorts, and to every others, including the Palestinians and including many, many others, and hopefully also to Syria. So that is the big news. These events will try to detract from that. The likes of ISIS hate it when there is a success story delivered by Muslims. They hate it, and therefore they emerge whenever there is a lull in conflict, whenever there is a good story, a hope to be had. Immediately they emerge as though someone is pressing a button somewhere, and they create chaos in order so that they distract from the real story onto what now unfortunately we have to talk about.
Indeed. I think you touched on a couple of points there. One of them was about building, and ISIS, ISK or ISIS or whatever, not standing for creating things, but destroying things. So Taliban actually, in some ways, they were fighting against, I guess, an occupation of sorts, and they had a common purpose. And in some ways, they were trying to deconstruct a particular I guess, context that was created in Afghanistan. So now they are in charge of building. So what do you think are the challenges, I guess, they're going to face in terms of doing that, and are they equipped to actually do the building rather than the opposing, so to speak? Brother Anas?
Oh, myself.
Yeah.
Listen. Firstly, I mean, let's make things very, very clear. When Taliban came to power first time in 1996, I was amongst those who disagreed with their ideology and disagreed with their tactics and policies. Regardless, I'm not an Afghani. I have no right to dictate to the Afghani people who should run their affairs. However, as an analyst, I was against their policies and their practices. It seems that the 20 years has managed to totally change their perspectives, totally change their approaches to Afghanistan. The initial signs, the initial statements that they have made is extremely welcoming. But more important than that, their fight to free their country from the clutches of a foreign occupation was absolutely just. Absolutely just. And that's something that we should all espouse, regardless of whether I agree with them or not, regardless of whether I like them or not, regardless of whether I would vote for them in an open election if given the chance or not. Their fight as Afghanis for the freedom of their country and their land and their people from the clutches of a foreign occupation is something which is absolutely just and must be supported by every person who yearns for freedom and for liberation for everyone. That's something that must be set as a stand. Now, the fact that whether they're going to stick by the initial signs, I mean, for instance, they met with even their ideological detractors, for instance, the people who are on the opposite side of the ideological or even Islamic spectrum, including the Shi'is, for instance, including many of those whom essentially disagreed with them when they were in power in 1996 up until 2001. The fact that they said that they would absolutely allow women to move, to work, to study. They wouldn't be closing down any schools. They wouldn't be closing down or preventing women from attending colleges and universities. The fact that they actually said, you know, whoever wants to actually leave Afghanistan, they're more than welcome to do so. We'd really like people to stay and serve in rebuilding Afghanistan. But if you feel that you must leave, you're more than welcome to leave. That's absolutely fine. Otherwise, they would have easily, the way in which they overtook all of Afghanistan within a matter of weeks, they could have easily surrounded the airport and, you know, maybe if they wanted to, stop flights from taking off, but they didn't. And I think all of that are signs that things have moved on and that the Taliban in 2021 are different from the Taliban in 2001 or even before that. That's something which is promising. And by the way, not promising for me. I don't matter in all of this. With all due respect, we three of us don't matter in all of this. Who really matters is the Afghani people. They must have the absolute right to decide their own future, who they are governed by, how they are governed by them, and to rebuild their country. Everything that we say, our commentary and the such, to be perfectly honest, and with all due respect to everyone, is by the by. Now we should all focus on Afghanistan returning to the realm of stable countries and societies that are able to grow, away from all this media frenzy, the silliness, and to be honest, the quite evil kind of narrative that Western media, our own media here in the UK, has absolutely adopted in spreading fear, in spreading chaos. The only story is how people want to run away and flee Afghanistan, as though, you know, before 3 weeks ago, Afghanistan was a haven of peace and tranquility and happiness and joy. As though the 20 years that have just passed haven't seen thousands upon thousands of Afghani families absolutely wiped off the map, as though their houses haven't been demolished, as though their children haven't been killed as a result of the drones and missile attacks by the Americans. So it's important that we recapture the narrative and that we place the onus of rebuilding Afghanistan squarely at the feet of the Afghani people.
Yeah, indeed. And Ahmed, that is a big challenge. And what do you see as I guess there is some discussions and negotiations happening. No idea whether there is success in those negotiations and discussions. But who do you see are the key players? There is an admission and a public pronouncement, at least anyway, by the Taliban that they want an inclusive government in Afghanistan. And like Dr. Anas has said, it's up to the Afghanis to decide what kind of future they want together. But I guess I've just been reminded I need to take a short break. I'll have to come back to you after a short break. Listeners, we are going to take a short break. Got about 20 seconds or so. We'll be back after this break to continue this discussion. Stay tuned.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Habib and I love listening to Inspire FM.
अगर आप अकाउंट्स या टैक्स की वजह से परेशान हैं तो घबराने की कोई बात नहीं। आज ही मुकम्मल राजदारी से हमारे साथ अपने तमाम मसाइल बुक कीपिंग, पेरोल, वीएटी, वर्किंग टैक्स क्रेडिट, चाइल्ड क्रेडिट, टैक्सी अकाउंट्स, लिमिटेड कंपनी बनाना वगैरह के लिए राब्ता कायम कीजिए। हमारे मशवरे और खिदमात से आपको खुशी और तसल्ली महसूस होगी। याद रखें, अब्दुल कयूम ऑफ ए कयूम अकाउंटेंट्स लिमिटेड, 4A वॉलडेक रोड, लूटन। Telephone 01582 755252. Mobile 07961 188616. Email aq.accountants@hotmail.co.uk.
With over 20 years' experience, your first choice for accident claims must be Claims Specialists. Don't be fooled by other companies or solicitors who offer no deductions. You end up losing out on the compensation you deserve. At Claims Specialists, we ensure you receive the maximum compensation you're entitled to, with hundreds of cars, including taxis, available within 1 hour. Consult us first for a fast, efficient, and professional service. Find out how highly recommended Claims Specialists can get the best result for you. Call Luton 733-222. Click on claimspecialists.co.uk or visit us at 167A Dunstable Road in Luton.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qala an-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, man ahabba lillahi wa abghada lillahi wa a'ta lillahi wa mana'a lillahi faqad istakmala al-iman. That he who loves for the sake of Allah, hates for the sake of Allah, gives for the sake of Allah, and denies for the sake of Allah, he has completed his iman.
वेस्टबोर्न फार्मेसी हफ्ते के 7 दिन सुबह 9 बजे से लेकर रात 9 बजे तक खुली रहती है। हमारी सर्विसेज में शामिल हैं ट्रैवल वैक्सीनेशंस, स्टॉप स्मोकिंग, डायबिटीज चेक, बच्चों की ग़िज़ा और बहुत कुछ। लुटन और डंस्टेबल में फ्री प्रिस्क्रिप्शन, पिकअप और डिलीवरी सर्विसेज भी की जाती है। इसके अलावा आप मेडिसिन के इस्तेमाल के लिए फ्री मशवरा भी ले सकते हैं। वेस्टबोर्न फार्मेसी 198 B Dunstable Road, Luton, corner of Westbourne Road. Telephone 01582 419 432.
1 in every 10 people live without access to safe, clean water. Let's give them a better choice than drinking either dirty water or no water at all. Together, we can turn this desperate situation around by delivering safe water solutions to the world's poorest people. Call 0161 225 0225 or visit humanappeal.org.uk.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Inspire FM.
Join us on our show, Community Connect. With us,
Hashim,
Ibrahim,
Mohammed
Hussein,
Abdul Baki,
Aki Mahmood, Saeed Junaid, and Abdul Subhan.
Here we talk about topics that concern the community.
So why not get involved? Every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m.
And join us on our gripping conversations.
See you there.
Community Connect, connecting the community.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. You're listening to Inspire FM. This is Friday Night Live. My name is Zafar Iqbal. I'm standing on for Hafiz Shaban for Friday Night Live show today. We have been talking about Afghanistan and the events in Afghanistan, the tragic events in Afghanistan before the break. We had Dr. Anas Al-Takriti. He was with me before the break, and he's from the Cordoba Foundation. And we had Brother Ahmed from MPAC UK, who's an organization has a keen eye on geopolitics around the world. So hopefully I'll be joining them again to pick up on the discussions where we left off. Wanted to sort of move on to the transitional government, and you know what are the, I guess, the key players, and then what the chances of forming a government which is inclusive of the various, I guess, minorities that are you know, exist in Afghanistan. So hopefully we'll be picking up with them shortly. Right. Okay. So before the break, we talked briefly about the I guess the tragic events, the bombings that took place at the airport, and I guess we talked about the people who are responsible for it before the break, and we talked about what they had potentially to gain from a horrendous acts of that nature. And before the break, I did pose a question to Brother Ahmed Hussain from MPAC regarding, I guess, the transition to a transition of Taliban as well, to say from a fighting group to a governing group, and you know, who are the key players, I guess, who are they engaging with in order to you know, frame a new inclusive government which they've committed them to themselves.
Well, the Taliban does have the advantage of acting as a shadow government for so many years, and so they've been able to bring in experienced governors, people who are experienced in governance and in representing the people and the needs of the people, and they've got that going for them as a positive. You know, people on the ground have said that one of the things that really attracted people to the Taliban and kept their support base going was their stance on corruption. According to transparency.org, it's estimated that 1/8 of all the money that was pumped into Afghanistan was lost on corruption. The figure could be much higher, you know, considering that trillions of dollars were pumped into Afghanistan, and it's an open secret that the Afghan National Army had a load of, I think they were termed phantom soldiers or paper soldiers, you know, bolstering numbers, so then the leading commanders could just pocket the salaries. So the Taliban governance has transitional leaders, has a transitional leadership of people who knew how to keep their support base going through the time of occupation, and that means that they can keep that up in terms of, you know, what worked for them under occupation, what kept their people, the Afghan people's interest and loyalty to them. That may well keep them going, but it would be very, very naive not to think that they will face, you know, a mountain of difficulties. I mean, we can already see that they are being pushed into a corner by, you know, influential members of the international community. When it comes to trade, how many other countries are going to trade with Afghanistan? And if trade is going to be impacted negatively, that is going to have a direct hit on the people of Afghanistan. And once time gets tough, what about the aid? When we look at the historical case of Vietnam, you know, lots of aid was sent to Vietnam after the war, but that aid was either sent to military contractors or it was sent to, you know, people who would continue or maintain the stances of the US pre-departure.
Indeed, but specifically in Afghanistan, I guess I get your point about the fact that the Taliban have been running some sort of a shadow organization or government in opposition, and in many of the areas there have been reports that they had and their comments about, you know, their efficiency of their justice system, right, being more well-oiled than the government in terms of hearing people's cases and getting decisions, etc. And that's been said. But we're talking about a different scale now. We're talking about an organization initially who was very much Pashtun led, right? And now all of a sudden, right, you've got power brokers, I guess, within the country who are, as Dr. Anas said, who are Shia backgrounds, Hazara backgrounds. There are also other ethnicities there in Afghanistan. So who will represent the others, so to speak? I guess the Taliban have got a whip hand. They've got the majority, and they're in power, and then they're controlling a lot of the centers. But if they want to be representative and be, I guess, respected by everybody within the country, then they've got to put some figureheads who are not maligned by this corruption, that you talked about. And who could they be? Who are those?
Well, I can't give a specific name, but I can say, but I can say that they've already within 10 days, they've already made the right moves in terms of keeping their arms open to the Shia during their important festivals, and in terms of having a very outspoken English-speaking press officer and so on. So they are making the right kind of moves, and that means that their strategic thinking is definitely going towards keeping their future government representative of the demands and the needs of their people, of the Afghan people. It's moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So indeed, Dr. Anas, I think we can, all of us can go by what information that's available, and we are sitting thousands of miles away, and we are actually sort of making conclusions or coming to judgments based on filtered information, right, which has been filtered yet still, I guess, by people who are editors and who got particular agendas that they want to present across. But how do you rate the chances of Taliban succeeding in forming a government, right, which is acceptable to all in Afghanistan, and what are the chances, I guess, where you'll get uprisings in likes of the Panjshir Valley, etc. again?
Well, it's not going to be easy. That's for sure. Neither. I mean, the task is monumental. The Americans, with all their might and with the trillions that Ahmed mentioned that were poured in over 20 years, left the place far worse than they found it. So, to try and expect that a fighting battalion, a fighting element, could immediately take reins of power and diplomatically and politically establish a sense of not only stability, but actually the potential for growth and the such, is, I think, a little bit stretching it too far. Mm-hmm. But I think that we should sort of temper our expectations to the level whereby, if Afghanistan was to be maintained to a degree secure and stable for the next year or two, and the Afghani refugees who left en masse over the past 30, 40 years, and particularly over the past 20 years, who constitute something like 5 to 6 million refugees around the world, including here in the UK. We all have neighbors and friends and brothers and sisters from the Afghani community. And many of those, they need the assurance that they have, they can return back and contribute towards rebuilding their country. But that needs a little bit of safety, security, and some sort of program for rebuilding Afghanistan that they could be assured by. However, one of the questions that I saw one of the Western media outlets ask the Taliban spokesman a few days ago was how they were going to instill democracy, for instance. Mm-hmm. And the man, I think, was quite equivocal in his answer that, listen, we won this war and we are going to run Afghanistan in the way that we see fit. Now, when you're victorious on a battleground, you have absolute right to do that. You have absolute right to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that once that kind of stability is ascertained, is attained and established, once that kind of project for the future of Afghanistan is beginning to unfold, and Afghanis from around the world, as well as from within Afghanistan, start to contribute towards forming that vision, people will then start to request that they have a say in how that is done. And Afghanistan will come to a stage whereby there is a system that maybe doesn't look like ours in the UK, but is something which takes into consideration the variety of views that reflect the variety and the diversity within Afghani society. I think that the world should afford Afghanistan and the Afghani people the time and the space in order to reach that kind of point. Now, as an analyst, I have to say it's going to be quite difficult, and it's going to be a long haul for a number of reasons. Firstly, as we just saw over the past 24 hours, the availability of people for whatever reason there is to create chaos. Second, I think that the fact that Afghanistan is a landlocked country, surrounded by countries that have an interest one way or another, whether it be Pakistan, whether it be Iran, whether it be Turkestan, whether it be, these countries do have an interest. And whether they will allow Afghanistan the time and the space, as well as the trade deals and all of that is necessary in order to prosper, that is a big ask, I have to say. I'm hopeful, but I can't say that I'm overly optimistic regarding the ability of this particular, let's say, government of the Taliban to actually achieve what we all hope that they could. We pray that they do, but it's going to be very, very difficult.
All right, you make a couple of points. You make a point about democracy, and you make a point about the players. I guess the regional powers, so to speak, right, who have a say in how things shape out, within Afghanistan. Let's take that point to start off with. And I think there's been lots of accusations being hurled at Pakistan being supporters of Taliban, etc. But has the US ceased to be a player in that region? And the other name, I guess, that's been bandied about is India. India has been in Afghanistan for, I guess, so many negative reasons, and there are groups within Afghanistan which have opposition to Pakistan and have attacked Pakistan from the land of Afghanistan, which Pakistan says are supported by India. So those two, US and India, were, I guess, in some ways, key players in Afghanistan. Have they ceased to be, and would they continue to have influence? And what kind of influence is that going to be, in your opinion?
If the question is to me, I'd quickly say that the US is not going to absolutely desert all its posts in the region. However, there is a marked withdrawal, and that might be because of internal politics in the US, might be because of the economic situation. America is in serious economic difficulty. It might be because of the fraction, the polarization of American society within, which doesn't really allow for the American president to do as he wishes in terms of spreading American might and spending billions and billions, probably even trillions of taxpayers' dollars on military escapades. But it also could be some sort of agreement that sort of China comes and fills in the kind of gap that America is leaving behind. Maybe even Russia a little bit, returning a little bit, through some sort of soft diplomatic kind of entry within or re-entry within Afghanistan. So I don't think there's going to be a total desertion of their posts, but it might be a sort of a change of roles of how it's going to exert its influence. In terms of India has really a big slice in this particular cake, not least because Taliban were essentially funded and sponsored and supported by Pakistan. And therefore, India are not going to leave Pakistan to have this victory and to brandish around this particular triumph. So it's going to try to interfere and intervene. But just to finish off, there are far other players that I think we need to pay attention to. Firstly, who's going to fill in the gap left by the Americans, whether it be through trade, whether it be through construction or the such. China is a big name in that case, especially that they're trying to rebuild that kind of the Silk road all the way through to the Persian Gulf, through Pakistan and the such. But also there are some other players which we need to pay attention to. The first is, indeed, a few hours after the Taliban took over the presidential palace in Kabul, the IMF declared that Afghanistan has about $9 billion that it was supposed to send over to the Afghani people, but that it will withhold those funds. Immediately, you have the international community, unfortunately, doing what they do best, and that is do an incredible disservice to people, do an incredible disservice to nations. The ability of the Afghani people to rebuild and to start to look forward to the future is something which the entire world must come together and support them and assist them in doing so. Unfortunately, the international community, as we know it, is doing what it does best and does not side with nations and does not side with people. And that's something that I think we need to watch. Also, the role of countries like France, as well as ours. What kind of diplomacy, what kind of politics we're going to play in regards and respect to Afghanistan and the Afghani people, that needs to be monitored quite closely.
So obviously the Americans went into Afghanistan. There is a geopolitical imperative for that, and the reasons for that. I guess Ahmed and they probably wouldn't want to leave that objective completely. But I guess I hear what you're saying, Dr. Anas, that Chinese are, they have their agenda, and the Indians have their agenda, etc. in Afghanistan. But I would say, Ahmed, why? Essentially, if we're saying the Americans are defeated, right, the Europeans, the NATO have been defeated in there, why would you expect the Europeans and the Americans to extend that hand of help and allow that £9 billion or whatever to be sent to Afghanistan?
Well, money talks. So although we may talk about military failure, what we have to realize is that the Taliban has said that their country is open for business, for investment into the mineral resources, mining, and so on. So even though there's been a military failure and the consequential loss in military profits, like for example, 5 or 6 military hardware producers, including Boeing and Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, they made over nearly $170 billion from public contracts in 2020 alone. So these are military contracts that have been lost. Yet the potential, now that there is a stable, potentially stable government running Afghanistan, that means that there's an opportunity for stable investment. So what we have is the military, the US military, coming out of a theater where they were getting entrenched, where since 2010, a troop surge, Obama's troop surge of 140,000 soldiers in 2010 did nothing to overwhelm the Taliban. So since 2010, really, it's been a military loss. So the military has moved out of this theater, and with a potentially stable government coming in to tap into corporate wealth, that means that the military can focus on what it does best. And, the writing on the wall seems to be preparing for confrontation with China. Kamala Harris, the vice president, is currently going on a tour of Southeast Asian countries, negotiating, or, I should say, quote unquote, negotiating deals which strengthens US presence and power in the region against China. And the military is now free to do that, freeing up all the resources that it pumped into Afghanistan, and the corporations are still able to tap into the 1 trillion, I think, estimated mineral wealth of Afghanistan. So what we may see in Afghanistan is a military failure, but what we might potentially see next is the exploitation by corporations, manipulation by international bodies like the IMF to try and manipulate the Taliban, if not ideologically, then economically. We've seen, unfortunately, in so many countries across Asia and Africa and South America and so on, that it's money that talks. And if
do you think that's a soft spot? Do you think that Taliban are militarily, they might have been hard and etc., but do you think that they are susceptible to manipulation using I guess the carrot stick approach, I guess, which has been mentioned in some of the newspapers, and using trade and money, right, I guess, as a leverage?
Unfortunately, I would have to admit that it is a soft spot. If we look at Vietnam, even if we look at South Africa, for example, after the fall of apartheid, decades later, there is still economic inequality, despite the reconciliation programs they've had on social inequality. The economic inequality is still there, and the riots we saw earlier this year are indicative of that. So yes, I'm sorry to say that is definitely a soft spot, which is already existing. It's not a soft spot that needs to be made. It's a sore spot that is already there. The plight of the Afghanis after 2 decades of a brutal, inhumane occupation means that there are people who desperately need aid, and that aid, as we saw in countries like Iraq, that can be used to devastating effect in making the state of the people themselves, as Dr. Anas said, the people themselves, their state will be just made worse, and that sore spot will be turned into potentially domestic discord.
Indeed. And Dr. Anas, I think you touched on the hopes of some commentators about democracy as a way of government in Afghanistan, and they've already declared that they're going to have an Islamic Emirate. I guess for our listeners, in some people's minds, democracy, Emirates, they can't really tell the difference between one form of government to the other. Perhaps you can elaborate on what you see the key differences, but also this export of democracy and whether the model in UK and in America and France can be transposed on another culture, another way of life, thousands of miles away, and whether that is an expectation too far, right, which then leads to corruption, which we saw massively in Afghanistan.
Well, I mean, this is a lengthy discussion. I, as just one out of many whom I'm pretty sure you've interviewed before, has spent decades of my life attending seminars and doing workshops and the such, talking about democracy and its place in Islam and the such. And I'm all for democracy, but I think that the way in which it's being brandished and talked about in the West is actually undemocratic, because what we're trying to do as Westerners, and I speak here from the perspective of a British observer, is that we are trying to impose a particular system on another people, and that in itself is very undemocratic. If anything, democracy is a tool. It's not an aim or objective. The aim and objective is to establish justice, is to establish freedom, and is to establish equality. If those 3 values were set, were established, no one felt that they were undermined, no one felt that they were discriminated against, no one felt that they were unfree or without the liberation or the will or the ability to actually express their views. Those are the values upon which any system which sees them forming the kind of government or administration that runs their affairs is called democracy. To think or to try to imply that either you have, the polling stations that we have here in the UK, we have the council elections, and then we have the party elections, and then we have the parliamentary elections, and unless it's done this way, then it's called non-democratic, is silly. And it's extremely foolish, and I think it's something that we should stop doing. The Afghani people have the absolute right to dictate and to decide for themselves how they want their affairs to be run. At this moment of time, we have a victor. And that victor has the absolute right. And we've seen this time and time again, by the way. We've seen this when a revolution happens, when an uprising happens, when a coup happens. The new administration say, you know what, we're going to prepare for an election 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. But till then, we're going to impose emergency laws. We're going to have curfews. We're going to have this or that. It might be rough, it might be, but that happens and we accept it. In this case, the problem seems to be that the Taliban have called for something which they have termed an Islamic Emirate. Regardless of whether, I would agree with that or I wouldn't or the such, they have the right to call it whatever they want to call it. But the kind of narrative that the media is now absolutely, running around like headless chickens, talking about as though Sharia law, without anyone actually having an inkling about what Sharia law is, what it actually means, whether the Afghani actually want Sharia law or not. Something as simple as, how do the Afghani people feel about Sharia law being imposed? No one cares, or no one actually bothered themselves with asking that kind of question to finish up. And I think this is something that we need to establish as a rule, and that is the people need to be free from all outside influence, from all occupation, from all.
Dr. Anas, I've been given my marching orders. So Jazakallah, thank you very much for your contribution. Ahmed Hussain, Jazakallah, thank you for your contribution. It's been a fantastic discussion. I really enjoyed it. And hopefully, inshallah, on another occasion, we'll meet again. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Listeners, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back right after these messages. Thank you.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Hina Khalid. Remember, smiling is sunnah. Keep the love and peace going. So listen to Inspire FM 105.1 FM.
Somewhere out there is a what to wear to work dilemma. A helping hand with a photocopier that's misbehaving. A seat on the rush hour bus. A colleague who's also a mate. An extra shift. A payday treat. And a well-earned Saturday off. You could find all this in a job that you never knew was out there. Search Job Help, the government website that can help you discover support, training and advice on finding your next opportunity. Job Help, we'll help you find it.
Attention for landlords. क्या आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी जल्द से जल्द किराए पर लग जाए और आपकी प्रॉपर्टी की 100% देखभाल के साथ साथ किराया भी पर वक्त मिले? तो मैरीगोल्ड रेजिडेंशियल्स से राब्ता कीजिए। मैरीगोल्ड रेजिडेंशियल्स अब प्रॉपर्टी की खरीदो फरोख्त का काम भी करते हैं। अगर आप अपनी प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पर खरीदना या बेचना चाहते हैं तो आज ही फोन कीजिए 01582 617 617 251 Dunstable Road, Luton. Terms and conditions apply.
If there's someone ill or you are ill from your family, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have a problem in your life, ask Allah Azza wa Jal.
AK Windows South Limited, manufacturers and installers of high-quality UPVC windows and doors, bifold doors, composite doors, conservatories, porches, skypods, fascias, guttering, and much, much more. We specialize in double glazing and triple glazing using the best German profile. If you want quality at affordable prices, AK Windows is the place to go. If your house needs a facelift, you know who to trust. For a free quote, call AK Windows today on 01582 483 777 or visit us at Unit 10E, Britannia Estate, Leagrave Road, Luton.
Your future starts here. Secure your place at Barnfield College. Learn from expert tutors using the latest software and equipment from industry and back up your knowledge with exciting work experience. Enroll online today or visit us on campus to secure your place for September. Open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Explore our wide range of courses and apply today at barnfield.ac.uk. That's barnfield.ac.uk.
For the last 10 years, SKT Welfare, with your support, has helped millions of people who are suffering due to lack of food, shelter, water, and medical care in Pakistan, Syria, Africa, Yemen, Palestine, and Bangladesh for Rohingya refugees. Thank you. Without your support, we could not have achieved this. Please continue to help. Donate now, 0300 30 20 786 or www.sktwelfare.org. Just 85 pence a day could provide vital food.
Head over to inspirefm.org to check out our new website. Missed a show or want to listen back to an old one? Want to know about upcoming schedules or maybe keep up to date with events going on? Don't worry, it can be found right here on www.inspirefm.org. As well as that, have a question, query or comment, find the contact details right here and become part of your community radio station. For the community, by the community.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. You're listening to Inspire FM. This is Friday Night Live. My name is Zafar Iqbal. I'm standing in for Hafiz Shaban today. Inshallah, before the break, we were talking about Afghanistan and the events in Afghanistan, recent events and also events in the last couple of days. Tragic loss of life with the bombings at the Kabul airport. We had Dr. Anas Al-Takriti and brother Ahmed Hussein from MPAC giving their views on Afghanistan current and future in terms of what is in store in terms of stability of Afghanistan and whether people of Afghanistan are likely to see peace in the coming days under the Taliban. Now we're going to move on to a slightly different topic, still connected in some ways to Afghanistan. So this is the story of Dr. Afia Siddiqui, who was an American, a distinguished American neuroscientist who allegedly was involved or got linked somehow to activities of Al-Qaeda, etc. And some say was abducted and handed over to the Americans in Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. Others say she was arrested in Afghanistan, under different circumstances, etc. But anyway, she was while being interrogated at Bagram, she was involved in some sort of a firearms incident, and she was extradited. She was shot and then extradited to America, and then charged and convicted and sentenced to a very hefty 86 years in prison. Now, the story is broken out in the last couple of days around the fact that she has been abused in prison, and that has resulted in the Pakistani High Commission lodging a complaint with the authorities in America. So Dr. Afia is obviously high profile. She's a Pakistani citizen in prison in America, and her case has been, I guess, discussed and brought up for discussion with heads of states previously as well. So it's a very high-profile case, and is subject to, I guess, the relations between America and Pakistan. So basically, the story is regarding the incident, and we're hoping to sort of have a discussion around this incident and life of Dr. Afia. I've given you a brief kind of resume of her life. Obviously, there are people who know about her situation a little bit better. We're expecting a couple of guests. We're expecting Syed Mohsin and Altaf Shakur, who I believe should be waiting for myself and a discussion. So obviously she's been in prison, Dr. Afia. She's been in prison for quite some time in America, approximately 18 years or so. She was arrested and taken to America in 2003, and there have been lots of, I guess, posts about her life and her treatment and the fairness of her trial and etc. And whether politics were involved and whether intelligence agencies were involved in her capture and the subsequent treatment. So hopefully we'll discuss all of these and then get the views of people who are, I guess, a little bit closer than I am. I'm just getting the information, I guess, from widely available resources. So bear with us, inshallah, while we're trying to get through to our guests, inshallah. So while we're waiting, just a little bit of a heads up on what's coming on the program. So in the next hour or so, we're going to be talking about a couple of local issues which may be of interest to yourself. We're going to be talking about a cricket tournament which has become a bit of a local scene, the Deepak Basuth cricket tournament. and we'll have some representatives of the cricket club a little bit later on to explain what the significance of this tournament is. I understand it has some history attached to Luton and a significance. And we'll also be getting an update on Mohammed Adam, which many people have been following on his walk to Makkah, on his walk for Hajj to Makkah. Inshallah, these are the two topics that I will be covering in the next hour or so, while we wait for that, while we wait for our guest to join. So that's what's on the headlines. Before the break, obviously, we talked about Afghanistan. We had our special guests, Dr. Anas Al-Takriti. He's the CEO of a Cordoba Foundation based in London. He was giving his opinion on the events of Afghanistan and I guess how quickly the Taliban have taken over, and what that means militarily for America, right? And whether America will completely disengage with Afghanistan, or maybe perhaps change its stance from a military engagement to a more political and economic engagement, which both the commentators, Dr. Anas Al-Takriti and also Ahmed Hussain from MPAC agreed with. So economics is the next big challenge, I guess, faced by Afghanistan. Economics, and I would say, I guess, an inclusive identity which everyone can buy into. Afghanistan, obviously, Afghanistan is made up of people from different backgrounds, and there are people, of different faiths. There are people, who are from Shia and Sunni backgrounds. People are of different nationalities. I guess if you think about them, people from up in the steppes of Central Asia. There are people who are, from the Pashtun regions of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And then there are also people who are, I guess, more leaning towards the Farsi belt, I guess, Iran and Iraq, etc., who make up the composition of Afghanistan. Finding an identity, a common identity between all of them, a glue, a gel that works for them is I guess, is going to be a challenge going forward. And it will define whether the Taliban can transition from being a fighting force, a guerrilla movement, to one that can deliver on the victories, I guess, that's been proclaimed by them on the occupation of their country. So that's basically what we talked about before the break. And also, obviously, we touched on the horrendous incidents of the bombings at the airport. We talked about ISK and what their motives are. I think, and I guess in terms of what they stand to gain from this, apart from publicity and short-lived gain, whether they have any objectives, real objectives of whether they will achieve anything lasting in Afghanistan, or whether they act as a spoiler, maybe acting at the behest of perhaps other forces which operate freely, I guess, in Afghanistan. There were forces from different parts of the world who had their own objectives. I mean, I'm talking about military forces as well as agencies, secret agencies, I guess, from other regions, and who are there for their particular or their particular sort of objectives. And whether it remains to be seen whether they remain undercover, or whether they'll depart and allow the government to actually serve the people as it intends to. We're still trying to get hold of our guests for the next topic, of Dr. Afia Siddiqui. Inshallah, bear with us while we're trying to connect. I understand there's some connection issues to where they are in the part of the world that they'll be speaking from. So that's what we talked about. And we talked about, I guess, in the context of Afghanistan, whether Islamic Emirat and whatever that means, I guess, in their context and how they interpret it. And we talked about democracy and whether democracy, as it's practiced in America, in France, in UK, can be transposed on different cultures and different people, and the intentions and I guess the history and the underlying ethos that underpins the philosophy of democracy can be translated easily, onto people who have other values, who have other systems of governance, etc., and whether it's possible or even it should be exercised that democracy should be exported on people regardless. So that was discussed, and I think Dr. Anas made a point of saying that that's not necessarily the case, and people should be able to sort of have a system of government which is in tune with their cultural values, with their background, etc. So that was the topic of Afghanistan, and I guess you've been hearing in the headlines about the number of casualties and the number of people that have been killed at the bombings that took place at the airport. So I guess in terms of a little bit more context as to what's happening at the airport is still under the control, with agreement with the Taliban. It's under the control of the Americans. There are some 1,000 British troops there, as well as there are some Australians and Germans, etc., who are at the airport. And seemingly the objective of that is to allow the airport to operate flights in and out to take people who hail from their countries, whether they're military personnel or civilian personnel, as well as giving passage to Afghans who had, who had or have a connection with the armed forces of these various countries. Seemingly, there is a security threat, to those, and I'm talking about people who are interpreters or people who are worked in administration, people who are spies as well. I guess you can extend it to that level. Their families would be under some sort of a threat, and the objective of holding the airport was to allow them to be transported across. So obviously, this bombings puts a different complexion on the events. It obviously makes it a lot less safer. There were people, I guess, ordinary. I won't say ordinary. There were civilian Afghans who were surrounding the gates of the airport, hoping to escape, hoping to get away. Obviously, not as should we say, not as tragic as the scenes that we saw some weeks ago, where people were on the tarmac, basically trying to climb onto airplanes, etc. But nevertheless, people queuing outside to be let in, to be allowed to board planes. And also, we've seen pictures of people effectively in hangars of transport planes being ferried and shipped across, I guess, to sort of regional hubs from which they're actually processed into the various countries. So ostensibly, the media has focused on their plight, although I guess the evacuation of military and intelligence apparatuses and destroying documents which are sensitive, which maybe make their way into the hands of Taliban, have also been the key focus, I guess, of people who are trying to sort of leave, but leave in an orderly way without leaving anything behind. So that was the purpose, and is the purpose of the forces of America, Britain, and other countries holding the Kabul airport, and I think the Americans have declared that 31st of August, which is next Tuesday, is the deadline when they hope to achieve the withdrawal of all of the people, the forces, and also the civilians from Afghanistan. And Taliban have also indicated that they're not prepared to extend that deadline from the 31st onwards. So that's the story about the Afghanistan. I am getting the information that our guest for the Afia Siddiqui topic may not be available. Just bear with me a sec. Yes, they're not available. The connection is not been established. So I think we're going to have to abandon that story. So I may have to relinquish my control over to our producers and to play something in the interim, and sheet or something like that. So over to producers.
Allahu, 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 Allah, Allahu, 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 Allah, Allahu, 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 Allah, Allahu, Allahu, Allah. الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل دجى من وفرته فاق الرسل فضلا وعلا أهدى السبل لدلالته الله 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 كنز الكرم مولى النعم هادي الأمم لشريعته أزكى الناس بأعلى الحسب كل العرب في خدمته الله 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 سعتي الشجر نطق الحجر شق القمر بإشارته جبريل أتى ليلة إسراء والرب دعاه لحضرته الله 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 نال الشرف والله عفا عما سلف من أمته فمحمدنا هو سيدنا فالعز لنا لإجابته الله 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 لا إله إلا الله There is no man more dear to me throughout the whole of history, than the one who was sent as a guide, leading people from darkness to light. His message was simple and clear, that there is one God whom we must all fear, inviting people towards Allah. His name is Muhammad Mustafa. His name is Muhammad Mustafa. بلغ الأولى بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله. He is the greatest man of all time. He came to teach the whole of mankind that we must worship only one Lord. Besides him there is no other God. Islam is what he came to teach. To every corner of the world did he preach, that we can all come together and pray to the one who provides us each day, to the one who provides us each day. بلغ الأولى بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله. He was a shelter for the orphans and poor. He is my only ticket for the heaven door. He confirmed all that was sent before. Then the whole world do I love him more. I swear if I only had a chance to go back in time for one glance at the face of Mohammed Adam, I would wonder whether I've had a dream. I would wonder whether I've had a dream. بلغ الأولى بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله. দিবানিশি বলি রে মন আর দিও না যন্ত্রণা, দনে যদি হইতাম ধনী যাইতাম সোনার মদিনা, যাইতাম সোনার মদিনা। بلغ الأولى بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله. بلغ الأولى بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله. صلوا عليه وآله.
Hello, this is Zafar Khan. I'm chairman of Luton Council of Faiths. I'm Thakor Morarji. I'm a member of Luton Sai Centre.
I'm Maureen Borbone from Holy Family and St John's Parish, and I'm also a trustee of Grassroots.
My name is Farzad. I am from the Luton Baha'i Faith community. We all are listening to Inspire FM 105.1 FM.
Birds in the trees sing sweet melodies. In the morning they whistle and tweet. First light of day, they call me to pray as I snuggle beneath my bedsheet. As day goes by, the sun up so high whispers down to the world far below. Get off the street and out of the heat, thanking God for your day as you go. Our shadows run, and though it's such fun chasing them with the time everywhere, they bow and they grow, letting us know that it's time to come join them in prayer. The sun will sink, and you may well think that your playtime has slid by too fast. Ease your fears as the white moon appears. Ask God to let fun memories last. When the night skies bring sleep to your eyes, take a moment to lower your head. Thank God again for your day, and then snuggle back to your dreams in your bed. Birds in the trees sing sweet melodies. In the morning they whistle and tweet.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Akib Tab and you're listening to 105.1 Inspire FM.
Looking for a career in the creative arts? At the University of Bedfordshire, we still have places available on a range of courses that will help you defy expectations. Benefit from the guidance of award-winning staff and state-of-the-art facilities at your local university. You could even be eligible for a generous scholarship or bursary. There's still time to defy expectations. Call our clearing hotline on 0300 3300 073 or visit beds.ac.uk.
आइडियल प्रॉपर्टीज 20 साल से आपकी खिदमत में पेश आपकी प्रॉपर्टी की सारी जिम्मेदारी अब हमारी। हम अच्छी तरह से जांच पड़ताल करके किराएदार डालते हैं और आपको किराया बर वक्त गारंटी के साथ दिलवाते हैं। अगर आप प्रॉपर्टी किराए पर लेने या फरोख्त करने का सोच रहे हैं तो आज ही हमारे तजुर्बाकार माहिरीन से राब्ता कीजिए 01582721110 या फिर 01582696050। Ideal Properties. आपकी मदद हमारा एन फरीजा।
Did you know GCSEs and SATs have now changed? These changes mean it's now harder for your child to pass their GCSEs. If you have children between the ages of 8 and 15, Attainment Plus Tuition can help. Attainment Plus Tuition provides professional help with maths, English and science, with fully qualified teachers and teaching assistants from local schools. Classes run 7 days a week for free. Yes, free tuition for your children. Call Attainment Plus Tuition now on 0777 6237 451. Terms and conditions apply, subject to eligibility.
Whoever enters paradise is blessed with a life of joy. He will never feel miserable, his clothes will never wear out, and his youth shall never fade away. Sahih Muslim.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jyoti Sood. Let's face it, lockdown has left many of us carrying some extra weight. But extra weight can put pressure on our bodies, making it harder to fight diseases like cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. So now is a great time for us to get our weight on track. The Better Health website has lots of free tools and tips to get you started. So for help and support to lose weight, search Better Health. Let's do this.
Whether you're looking to refresh your current bathroom or enjoy an exciting complete new design, you'll find everything you need at trade prices at Bath & Tile Superstore in Luton, with service with a smile from our super friendly staff. Why not take advantage of our 3D design service? Big names, designer brands at low prices. Bathrooms, tiles, radiators, adhesive, grouting and accessories. Visit the showroom where there's extensive stock to take away or arrange for delivery. That's Bath & Tile Superstore, Cosgrove Way, LU1 1XL. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Instagram for inspiration and updates.
Friday Night Live.
I compromise my beliefs. I don't want to go to the pub and drink. My wife doesn't want to wear a miniskirt. My wife doesn't want to take her hijab off. You know what? I love this society. I love being British. But at the same time, why don't they love us in return?
Join in the conversation with me, Abdul Akbar, and my guests every Fridays from 6 p.m.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. You're listening to Inspire FM. This is Friday Night Live, and my name is Abdul Akbar. I'm standing in for Hafiz Shaban today. We hope to talk about Dr. Afia Siddiqui and her plight in prison in America. Unfortunately, some of the guests that we wanted to talk to could not be connected because of connection issues with internet, etc. So apologies for that. So we're going to move on to a topic which I guess is more relevant to folks of Luton and surrounding areas. I might be wrong. This could be an international thing that I'm not aware of. But hopefully the guests that we have will enlighten us. So this is regarding the Deepak Basu cricket tournament. I have to admit, I need some enlightening on this particular tournament, being a Lutonian, and I could be accused of being not so aware of the situation in my hometown. So I'm going to get Councillor Aslam Khan, Deputy Leader of Luton Borough Council, to explain what this tournament is and what its significance is, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you very much, Zafar. Honored and delighted to be back with you show again, and to my salam to all of your viewers.
There's an echo on your line, I'm afraid. So.
Right. Okay. So how do I deal with this? I'll try to stand back a little bit. Is that any better?
No, the echo. Have you got a mic and the phone on at the same time?
No, I haven't actually. It's just the computer. But if that's not working, I can try it from my phone. If that's all right. If you think, let me try my phone and close this, and that might just improve because you don't need to see me.
This says while Councillor Aslam sorts his technology out, I'm afraid we're plagued with technology today. Bear with us. I've been told by our admin that if you just turn the volume down a little bit or disconnect and connect again, that might work. But anyway, we're expecting some more guests as well on this one. So we're expecting, we were expecting Councillor Aslam, Sam Parker, Lutonians Cricket Club, Pax Patel, ex-Lutonian Indian cricketer. Are we going to get any of those guys? Come on.
Yeah, can you hear me now, Zafar?
Oh, perfect. Mashallah.
Zafar, can you hear me? I'm Pax. Can you hear me?
Oh, hello, Pax. How are you? I actually can't see you visually, but if you're there in audio, then welcome to the program. Indeed.
Can you hear me now, Zafar?
Yes, I can. Yeah, continue, please. Just give us the significance of this tournament.
This tournament is being organized in the memory of our dear friend Deepak. He was a very important figure for us in Luton in the cricketing world. He was very well known. He was larger than life. I remember when I first started my cricket, he was more senior than I was. And he used to play for Luton Town Indians, a formidable force, a team which dominated cricket in Luton for a decade. And I was so inspired by his skill, his leadership, and how he used to motivate and galvanize his team together. We used to have some international players coming and playing this league. We had our own best like Nasser Shah, Jilani, and many others who are very, very good cricketers. And when we used to play with him, I mean, he was a very pleasant guy, always used to have a smile on his face. But the skill that he had was absolutely amazing. And I have no doubt if he was today, the barriers that, we collectively have been able to break, I have no doubt that he would have played for England. He was that skillful. And I have never known someone so passionate who happens to buy his house right opposite the cricket ground just because that he didn't want to be too far away from the ground itself, and that got to show the passion he had. And it wasn't just about playing cricket. It wasn't just about playing for his team. He was a person for the community. How he was able to grow Luton Town in Indians is amazing. If you go up there, if you look at the facilities you've got the bar, you've got other entertainment areas outside. I mean, he was the backbone trying to sell the vision, get the funding, have the necessary supporting facilities for our cricketers to learn their skills, and not just learn but go and far and beyond, like Monty Penasa. He was the first Asian to break the ranks, and if he wasn't, and again I'm very clear, if it wasn't for Deepak, Monty wouldn't have played for England. Is the way he groomed him, is the way he coached him, and the way he had the network. He spoke to people, he commanded respect, so people listened to him. And I remember the second focus club that we've got, Warden Park. He was quite instrumental supporting our team, our chairman, and everyone else. Sam Parker, you might be aware of him. He's our chairperson, who quite often used to go and seek his advice because he was a very knowledgeable person. So for us, Deepak was our dear friend. His memories are very strong amongst us.
Can you? I'm gonna sort of show my ignorance here now. But you talk in a past tense and you talk about memories. Well, what happened to Deepak?
Unfortunately, he had terminal illness and he died still reasonably very young age. So, he's left a void amongst us friends in the community. So, this tournament is for his memory. And there used to be another triangular tournament that we used to all organize and play, and used to attract thousands of spectators in the town. And we want to recreate and relive those memories. And this, we're hoping, will be the beginning of creating that environment where we can integrate and socialize and be friends, because cricket is just a sport. It's a medium of helping to integrate, to socialize, to get to know one another. And I can tell you, through cricket, the friends which I've made are still my friends and will continue to be my friends. And so
can I ask Pax then, perhaps if you can talk a little bit about this competition itself, and this tournament,
Yes,
and the participants, and how frequent it happens, etc. So,
well, this is the first memorial tournament for Deepak Bhai. I call him Deepak Bhai. Basically, it's like Aslam said. I echo everything what Aslam says. We used to have a tournament to bring all the communities together years and years ago, but this time round we're gonna basically have a tournament amongst two Luton Indian sides, Luton Cockneys, Luton Pakistanis, Lutonians, which will be representing, and also Luton Caribbeans. And the idea being is a lot of these players are ex-players that we used to battle with on the field. I mean, I was lucky enough to battle against Aslam as opposed to battling against Deepak, and he'll tell you that. And some of my fondest memories of cricket are in those days. If I'm honest with you, I don't think those days were just very special. And Deepak was a very, very big part of cricket in the community of Luton, and he was the type of man that got things done, and we owe it to him and to raise awareness for our communities and cricket itself.
So when is this happening? I guess
so the tournament is on Bank Holiday Monday. It's going to be played at Luton Town and Indians Cricket Club, and Lutonians Cricket Club kindly have also offered their facilities of Lower Wardown.
Sorry, where is that for the uninitiated like me?
Well, if you're from Luton, if you know where Wardown Park is.
Yeah, we know where Warden Park is. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Do you know there's a roundabout there and there's a cricket pitch at the corner?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's Lutonians cricket pitch. So some of the games will be there. And then there's another cricket pitch above that, but you have to go round into there. And that's where Luton Town and Indians Cricket Club are based.
Another simple way of explaining: if you get to the museum, there's a car park there. You can simply walk to the left. You go Lutonians down the steps, and on the right there's a pathway just behind the museum which leads to Luton Town Indians. But if you wanted your cars to be, I would imagine it would be busy, and the ground itself may not be able to accommodate that many cars. So if you park around where the museum is, you can simply walk to both of the cricket fields.
I know the place that you're talking about. I just wanted to make sure, I guess, that any of our listeners who are not familiar with those, and what is your hope? I guess we're having a conversation on Inspire FM, and I have been, for me, it's a revelation, to be honest. I didn't know about Deepak Parsuth, and I regret not having kind of met him. He seems like an inspirational character, but at the same time, what are you hoping to get, I guess, from the conversation today?
Well, like I think for us, and I think Aslam will echo this as well. It's the main thing is to get all of our communities together of Luton. It's a day of fun, Obviously, there'll be the cricket element of it, but the most important thing is that we get together, we fight it out on the cricket pitch, we play hard in memory of a man who played his game hard. There was no ifs and buts with Deepak Parsuth. You either win or that was it, really. So, and that's how we want the spirit of the tournament to be, where everyone gives it their best, respects the sport of cricket, conducts themselves accordingly, and let's just have a great day bringing all the communities together.
Brilliant. And I just mention, I do know that there are a few cricket teams in Luton. How prevalent and what caliber of games are there at the moment, I guess? Are they just sort of people who are enjoying cricket and then got some spare time, or are there competitive games happening within Luton and there's lots of teams?
I mean, there's a lot of weekend cricket which is in high league cricket. To be fair, there's still a Luton Luton midweek league running as well. My own opinion, though, is probably it's a very different format to what it were when we played back 15, 20 years ago, but it's still good to see that it's continuing. And I think through what I hear, it will get stronger and stronger and stronger, because we're hoping from Luton Town and Indians that we'll start participating in that league as well moving forward. But yes, cricket isn't just played for the sake of cricket. There is some major leagues that a lot of clubs, Lutonians, Caribbeans, Luton Town and Indians, both clubs have got probably 3 or 4 sides being fielded every weekend, and they're all part of competitive leagues. So yeah, and that is again down to someone like Deepak Parsuth, who was a very instrumental person to set all of that up.
Just to add, Zafar, so you in Luton you've got 2 focus clubs. In fact, now Caribbeans, you can put them in category. So these clubs have their own dedicated cricket grounds, and there are a member or play in the leagues such as Bedfordshire County League. Then you go Brian Hart's leagues, the Saracen leagues. And one of the criteria for playing in those leagues is that you've got to have your own regular ground of a standard that will accommodate, that level of cricket. And then you've got midweek league, which is played during the week. You got Cricket East League. So there's various different leagues, and we've got something like 40 odd teams in those leagues. And these clubs, like what Pax have said, you've got 4 to 5 or even 6 teams, and now we've got even girls teams, disabled teams. And for Lutonians, we're proud to say our juniors have won the championship. Our second team has just won the championship in Brian Hart's. You've, apart from Monty, you've seen now Kashif Ali breaking through the ranks and now playing Kent County. You'll have a couple of others now playing for other these KPL and IPL and PSL type of leagues. So we are, going from strength to strength. From Lutonian clubs alone, you've got about 15 young kids playing for Minor County, and Pax will tell you they've got probably an equal number from their side. So what we in our age have done is we've built foundations for these kids. We've then built these facilities for kids to acquire those skills to compete at the highest level. So, and that is a legacy which people like Deepak and others have left behind. It's the battles they fought. Is at one time I remember when I couldn't even go on to Luton Town Indian ground, to what is called Luton Town Indian now. You couldn't even go and watch the game, let alone playing there. So you can imagine what kind of battles that these guys and us have fought to now acquire those clubs for our kids, for our communities. They are community clubs. And what we're trying to do is, again, bring everyone together and get more involved. And, you remember those days, there's, Uncle Patel, Mrs. Patel, Uncle Khan around the corner. We were all one community, and we knew each other so well. But now, because of work, because of job allocations, people have moved. Me and Pax were neighbors. We used to live right across one another, and we used to see each other more or less, every other day. But now, because I'm living on one end of the town, he's probably living right on the other edge. We don't get to meet other than socializing or playing cricket. So we want to create that environment to reconnect again, to reconnect with the people we knew, we spent our life, and we have found memories of.
Indeed. And so, how many clubs, Pax, are there in Luton? I mean, two of them you've just described. If there are lots of teams, is there enough ground? Is there enough grounds? Is there enough grounds in Luton to?
That's the problem. That's the problem that we just before I let Pax in. Look, we've got Luton Pakistanis, Kashmir Cavaliers, Saracens, Hadris. I mean, I can go on naming these names. There's so many cricket teams, but not every team can possibly have a ground, and it's never possible in any town. So what you have is focus clubs which incorporate all of these teams, and you try to form a good team and to compete with other towns. Now, in Luton, we're very unfortunate because it's a small town with a very little green space. So, and then Luton is considered as a home of cricket. We've got so many cricketers and so many people who are wanting to play cricket. We just not have got enough grounds. So our kids are going out of town and joining other clubs. There's lots of other clubs around Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire. So people are going further afield. So which is a good thing, because there are lots of beautiful grounds that they're actually going and exploring. But our wish is, over the longer run, we've got a big intensive program going on at the moment. You would have seen Imran Malik do a lot of work with our youth development. And as far as grounds are concerned, with the help of Cricket East, we're trying to improve the standard of cricket across the town. Because of COVID, that has been hindered our efforts. But we're hoping that whatever grounds we've got, we improve our standards. They've got pavilions, trying to bring them back on use. But that all takes time, because funds are not readily available as they should be.
Indeed, that's the case. Well, thank you guys for the discussion today. Aslam Sahib, I just wanted to have a quick comment about the red list. Pakistan has been on that. Pax, thank you very much. I mean, to me, it's been enlightening. I never knew the depth and breadth of cricket that happens in Luton. But then again, I'm not a cricket player. I'm a fan, I guess, from a distance, from an armchair perspective. But it's good to hear that there's lots of activity around cricketing happening, and it's bringing communities together. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Pax. Thank you indeed.
Thank you very much, Zafar. Thank you for having me. And take care.
Thank you. So Aslam Sahib, Pakistan still on the red list. What's going on?
Well, that's a shock and a surprise to a lot of us. We are equally frustrated. We have written to the ministers. We have Our MPs have been speaking about it in the Commons and written letters, but it seems like that is landing on deaf ears. I'm struggling to understand that any decision should be based on facts and science. The decision does not or is not based on any of those. I'm not
It's
quite
purely political, isn't it? It sounds like it's purely political, isn't it?
Well, if it's political, on what basis? Everything has a purpose. So, I'm trying to understand what political agenda they have. They are actually stopping their own citizens from coming back because they can't afford to be quarantined and stay in a hotel and spend that kind of money. Imagine a family. We have kids who are not have returned to school. They are abroad because the families, just even with the COVID, did not have enough money. They have been stranded in Pakistan, and so those who came and had to be quarantined, they're indebted even more. I mean, this is ridiculous. I just cannot understand, the basis of this decision and the stance of this government.
Well, I understand. I guess if it's science-based, right, it's actually about reducing risk, and it's about reducing risk not just to England and Britain, but it's also reducing risk to Pakistan as well. Because I know when COVID was rampant here, there were families leaving UK with fake certificates, and I know people are getting infected in the villages in Kortli, etc. So that's a tragedy in itself. But I do get the fact that now the situation appears to be sort of under control, so to speak, at least anyway. That this red listing is probably used as a political, and in terms of the only thing I can think of really is around the Afghan issue, really, whether the Afghan there was.
Look, the thing is, Afghan issue is in Afghanistan, not in Pakistan. And if people choose to travel, they can travel through Iran, they can travel through Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, everywhere else. But why is it that Pakistan is in red list? And when you talk about someone coming back with strands of coronavirus and so forth, well, you've got these tests. You are you could test them and see if they're positive or not. They can be done in Pakistan, and incredible places, or you could even ask them to come to home office or set a camp somewhere there where you have your own staff monitoring it if you feel that you're not confident. But how can a person of 5, when you're talking about 2,200, how much is that in a economic situation that we're in now? If that was the case, it should be applied to Afghanistan, it should be applied to India, it should be applied to Bangladesh, it should be applied to a whole spectrum of countries. Why is Pakistan singled out? That I'm actually finding it very difficult to understand.
I was actually I was talking about the geopolitics of Pakistan rather than Afghanistan, because I think Pakistan is seen as being in some way on the opposite side to what's been happening so far in Afghanistan. But I do get what you're saying. But I guess you would have thought, is this another case of Mr. Javed trying to be whiter than white, so to speak, right, and make sure that he's not seen to be favoring, being favoritizing a nation to which his forefathers belong to, I guess.
No, well, look, it's not about being whiter and white. I think what people want is equal rights, and they want fairness. Whether it's Javed or Tom, Dick, and Harry, it doesn't matter who it is. What they want is fairness. So why is Pakistan singled out to be a red list when the stats don't support the decision? It's as simple as that. I'm sure every decision that he's is basing on is on evidence. Otherwise he wouldn't be in the job. So Pakistan is no different. He should gather evidence. If the evidence supports that Pakistan should no longer be in a red list, then it shouldn't be, and that shouldn't have any difference on his background or whatever that himself.
Yeah, so I guess what you're appealing to is the sense of fairness, right, of decision makers, right, in government, and
Exactly.
we know that sense of fairness, right, is not necessarily always acted upon, right, in the power corridors. What matters is leverage, And from what we're saying is all the MPs, right, that have a connection with Pakistan have failed to convince. Then it just shows that leverage isn't there. And what does that say about the political standing of the Pakistani diaspora?
Well, Zafar, Pakistanis are not begging for favors. No one's asking for favors.
No. I'm just saying favors. I'm just talking about
and so we shouldn't be, as an equal citizen, we shouldn't be even worrying about leverage. And what we looking at here is there any level of discrimination against, a community which has relatives who may not be well and they've gone abroad, or they may have gone because there was a death in the family, or they might have gone at the time because it wasn't a red list and they could go.
Sure. Okay. Now, Aslam Sahib, I'm going to have to stop you there. Thank you for your contribution. The background music is telling me that it's time to end the show. Thank you for your contribution today. I've been really sort of interested in the cricket competition, and hopefully that goes well for you, and the objective that you're trying to project from it. Listeners, thank you very much. Jazakallah khair for listening today. If you have listened, this show will be on repeat, I guess, on the internet and the website. Stay tuned until next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Coming up next, English Talk Series. Continue listening to Inspire.